Okay, strong start to the season last week, but we have to keep going. It's week 2, and now we're playing the Oceania Oshawotts. Or maybe the Oakland Oshawotts. The Discord and the doc say different things. Anyway, we're playing the Oshawotts, and here's the matchup. They have Regieleki, Primarina, Saralege, Gallade, Gotharita, Furret, Swalot, Superior, Duraldon, Rabombi, and Wiglet. So, looking it over, it's an interesting team. And it kind of feels like the Good Stuff's team for this season. They have a strong Fire, Water, Grass core. They also have Fairy as well as Dragon Steel, one Pokemon, of course. There's no obvious terrain or weather mode. Of course, these are things that I'm thinking about a lot because I've built my team with terrain and weather in mind. And in fact, there are a lot of weather teams in the league this season. But this is just a really solid mix of Pokemon that I found pretty hard to build against. Regieleki obviously completely warps the speed tiers in any matchup. There are a ton of strong and bulky Pokemon here, like all of the Fire, Water, Grass core, which all have ways to boost their stats as well. Gallade is a really solid Pokemon that I haven't really talked about yet. Not only Regieleki, but also Superior and Rabombi are broadly faster than most, if not all, of what I can bring. And of course... they have Follow Me and with Furret, but also if I spam spread moves to get around that, they have Wide Guard with Gallade. Gotharita can trap things. I don't know what game plan there is for that, but it exists as an option. And the other thing I was going to say was this guy's been in the league, I think, from the very beginning, which would be one season longer than me, and I definitely think he made some comfort picks here. Like, Gallade, for sure, is a Pokemon that I think he has used a lot and is very comfortable with and likes, and I think that there are other comfort picks throughout this team. So overall, it's very solid and very hard to build against. I found this one more of a slog than building last week. And I fell into that awkward draft league position where there were, no matter how I thought about it, more than 6 Pokemon I wanted to bring. It was very hard to cut it down to just 6. That said, we're going to start things off with the only Pokemon that I always knew 100% I was bringing this week. The only one out of all of these that I never questioned, and that's last week's hero, Iron Leaves. Bringing a more offensive set this time wasn't really my original idea, but as I calced it out, it seemed like the thing to do. It also can outrun Modest Superior, I think. It definitely can't outrun Regieleki, not much can. But in any case, the main reason to bring Iron Leaves is that boosted Psyblade is very strong into my opponent's team, the only resistances being Duraludon and Gotharita, and of course he doesn't have a Dark type before Terra. So throwing off Psyblades is very strong into most of his team. Sacred Sword and Night Slash round out the coverage. Sacred Sword, of course, picking up Duraludon, and Night Slash picking up Gotharita. Plus, if he runs a Terra Psychic something to handle this obvious combination of coverage, then I might be glad to have Night Slash then. I thought about running Electric Terrain on Iron Leaves so that I would have more than one Electric Terrain setter, because I'm bringing one, you'll never guess who, and I have a fairly Electric Terrain centered game plan, but we're going to see how it goes with one setter. He does have ways to change the terrain, I assume. I actually checked whether Rabombi gets Misty Terrain, and I was surprised to find out that it doesn't, but I'm sure he has other Pokemon with other terrain moves. But we're just going to try the one Electric Terrain setter and boring old 3 coverage, triple coverage and protect on Iron Leaves. Like I said, the set ended up being built more offensively than I originally had in mind. Max attack puts it in a position to pick up a lot of KOs or near KOs into bulky Pokemon that he can bring, especially with the Life Orb. And I went back and forth on the Terra type. I was strongly considering Terra Stellar for a while. For the same kind of reason, that this Iron Leaf set, depending on what he brings, might potentially just barely miss out on some KOs into a bunch of possible Pokemon that he could bring, and so situationally, Terra Stellar might be useful to pick up a KO with any one of these attacks into the appropriate target. But Fire... Oh, and I was doubting the value of a defensive Terra type because I've made such a glass cannon set, although Iron Leaves has a decent amount of natural bulk, at least on the special side. But Terra Fire just does so incredibly much in this matchup that it was hard to overlook. So first of all, Iron Leaves is slower than Rabombi and double weak to its Bug Stab. Fire turns that into a resistance. Fire also covers opposing fire and ice attacks, which are very plausible Terra types that he could run on Regieleki or Superior, both of which can easily be faster than Iron Leaves. And it also can reduce the recovery that his Cerulege gets with Bitterblade into my Iron Leaves. So it's a situational Terra type either way. I don't think this is the Pokemon that I'm the most likely to Terra. And Stellar was very, very interesting on paper, but I think Fire just does too much to ignore. Moving on, we have that Electric Terrain setter I mentioned, and of course it's Thundurus. This is, well, it started off as a pretty similar set to last week. I guess it's kind of stayed that way. I still have the Terra Steel, and I still have a lot of investment in bulk. Not quite full bulk this time. I hit some defensive benchmarks that I wanted, and then put the rest into special attack. And then 4 points of speed. I haven't identified a single thing that they do in this matchup, but at least I am doing something with those EVs. Maybe it will matter somehow that I haven't identified. Bringing Terrain Extender instead of the Covert Cloak this time, because unless I've missed something, his only fake-out user is Gothorita. So that Pokemon exists, but I'm not as worried about it as I was the Infernape last week. And like I said, I have a fairly electric terrain focused game plan, and I decided not to run electric terrain on Iron Leaves, so the more turns I get out of a Thundurus setup, the better. I don't know what defensive benchmarks I was hitting exactly. I did a bunch of calcs throughout this team against different Regieleki sets, because Regieleki can run physical or special offense and hit extremely hard either way, especially with its electric attacks, but I also did a bunch of calcs against Ice Terra Blast. I don't think Thundurus is necessarily taking one of those before its own Terra, but I also calced against things like Gallade, Primarina, Cerulege. It took a while, and I don't remember the specific benchmarks, but just trust me when I say that this allows it. This spread allows it to survive against some things, probably largely from Regieleki. And then, yeah, the 36 special attack EVs are just because I didn't feel like there was anywhere specific that I needed them defensively. Electric Terrain I've talked about a lot. I've brought Thunder Wave as the speed control move this time because Scary Face or Electro Web is a liability into Superior. The trade-off, of course, is that Thunder Wave doesn't work on Regieleki unless Regieleki is terrestrialized, but we can play around that. I thought about dropping Taunt. The 4 move slot syndrome was again bad this week. But he has so many setup options on his team that I want the opportunity to prevent something like a Bulk Up or a Sword Stance on Cerulege or Gallade, or something like Quiver Dance or Bombi. There may be a situation where something like that is important. And I thought a ton about the electric move this week, and at different times I had Thunderbolt in here for a long time, and I considered at other times a Wild Bolt Storm, despite the miss chance. But Discharge 1 has the highest paralysis rate of the 3. Again, I think I'm looking to paralysis largely for my speed control this week. But also, as you'll see when I bring up the next Pokemon, I'm looking at running a possible Disquake mode this week. Obviously, Iron Leaves doesn't play very nicely with Disquake, but it does have Protect so that it can hide from an ally's Discharge, or it resists Earthquake, but might want to hide from that too. I don't love having Discharge as the only attack on Thundurus, because I can create a number of situations where it's safe to click, but I can't make it safe all of the time. But it's early season, and we're still experimenting. We'll see how it goes. And given that I said I'm running Disquake stuff and I'm putting Electric Communities next to Thundurus, you can probably guess the next Pokemon. I'm doubling down on the electric terrain by bringing Iron Treads. Iron Treads, of course, is immune to Regieleki's Electric Stab, as well as its partner's Discharge. This EV spread makes sure that its speed, with the Jolly Nature, it makes sure that its speed is 1 point higher than its attack, which means that it will get a speed boost in electric terrain, and I believe it will be faster than any Ribombee or Superior set, though, of course, not faster than Regieleki. I could have used less speed. I could have run less speed to creep those guys with a boost, but then I wouldn't get 252 attack EVs. This is the minimum speed investment to get a speed boost with those EVs in attack. And then the rest is just bulk. Since I had 4 attacks in mind, I slapped an Assault Vest onto it. There's not a ton of thought behind that, but maybe it'll be helpful. I have Earthquake and High Horsepower. I can throw off an Earthquake next to Thundurus, or maybe next to something else. But High Horsepower, of course, is the safe single target move, also useful if he's brought Wide Guard. Iron Head rounds out the coverage into... What does Iron Head pick up? It picks up Ribombee, because that resists ground and is weak to steel. It's a neutral hit into Superior. So yeah, it's a valuable stab combination overall into some of his Pokemon, and then I can pivot out with Volt Switch. Terra Grass, because Primarina is a big threat to a lot of the team that I've brought this week. Not so much Iron Leaves and Thundurus, although I don't have Leaf Blade on Thundurus, so it's not amazing into Primarina. Not that Primarina wants to take a boosted Psyblade. But I was looking for a Terra type that would turn the water weakness into a resistance while not making it weak to Fairy. So Dragon wasn't an option. Water was an option, but then of course it's very vulnerable to Superior and Regieleki, whereas with Terra Grass it resists electric and grass as well as water, and it's weak to an Ice Terra Blast from Regieleki or Superior, or a Fire Terra Blast from one of them. There's no type that perfectly covers the weaknesses here, but grass seemed like the safest overall. So that's me doubling down on electric terrain, but I'm actually tripling down on electric terrain, and this might not be a great idea. Maybe I need to get it out of my system, but I want to try out Electric Seed Gligar. And actually, I'm working backwards a little bit here, because the Discquake mode kind of came from this. Gligar, of course, is a second Discharge immunity and a second Earthquake immunity. So that alone makes it useful to slap on next to either one of these teammates. Ground and flying and ground is also a pretty useful stab combination into my opponent's team, for the same reason that Earthquake Spam works well, but also then the Acrobatics is super effective into Ribombee and Superior. That said, it's all coming off of a base 75 attack stat, so I kind of felt like if I wanted it to do any damage, I needed Swords Dance. And then I thought about running Tailwind, but... yeah, I thought about running Tailwind for the bit of extra speed control, but I felt like Gligar's not that bulky without an Eviolite, especially on the special side. It actually is very naturally physically bulky, and of course the Electric Seed buffs that, but on the special side, it's not bulky without the Eviolite. So if I want to give it any staying power, Protect felt important, and I thought that I could probably get by without Tailwind this week, given that I have Thunder Wave and Discharge on Thundurus, and I have speed boosting Iron Treads. But we'll see how that goes. I can't remember right now what all this speed investment does. I think I wanted to make sure that Gligar would be faster than Gallade. I don't know if that actually adds up. There was some... I'll check before the game, but there were some opposing Pokemon that I wanted to be guaranteed faster than and hit with a strong Acrobatics before it can set up on me or something. Maybe it was Adamant Gallade. I don't remember right now. Hyper Cutter is kind of just the only good ability this guy has, even though my opponent doesn't have Intimidate. Terra Water, I've run Grass already on Iron Treads, and there's going to be another Mon with Terra Grass in a moment. Terra Water, of course, brings the liability that I mentioned into Superior and Regieleki, but it does sort of vary my defensive Terra types a little bit, so that I have an option to Terrasilize a ground type that doesn't then make it weak to Bitter Blade or a Fire Terra Blast. It just varies my options a little bit more. From here especially, it got really hard to choose just 2 more Pokemon to bring out of all the options on my team. And this next one I didn't have penciled in at first, but it felt like the responsible choice to bring Magmar. With the Eviolite, as always, Terra Grass for pretty much the same reasons as Iron Treads. But the reason I'm bringing Magmar is largely its fire typing before it terrestrializes. Spoiler for the last Pokemon, apologies to Barrascuda fans. I'm not bringing anything else this week that resists Ice or Fire before Terra, so getting those resistances from Magmar seemed very important. Plus, the resistances to Bug, Fairy, and Grass are also potentially very useful into, again, Superior and Ribombee, which are faster than anything I'm bringing outside of electric terrain, although I do have other switch-ins to those guys. They're not as important as covering for fire and ice attacks. The other thing that Magmar brings is Clear Smog, because as I mentioned, my opponent has a ton of ways to boost his Pokemon stats. Superior, of course, can boost an attack at the same time. Primarina can do that once with Throat Spray, which which is all the more reason to have Terra Grass on the Magmar so that I have an opportunity to take a hit and get off a Clear Smog into Primarina. Gallade, Saraledge have boosting moves. Rabombi has Quiver Dance. I don't need to run through the list again, but Clear Smog might be important in an emergency situation in this matchup. That said, Magmar had terrible 4 move slot syndrome this week, maybe even worse than Thunderous. I kind of wanted Knockoff because he has 2 possible Eviolite users. I want to Protect because I'm bringing my Discquake stuff. I thought about dropping Helping Hand because I don't know that it's important in this matchup, but there are a few KOs that it might help me to pick up in certain situations, so I am hesitantly keeping it. Follow Me, of course, is going to enable my Pokemon to get some more hits off. Regardless, Clear Smog I've explained, and Flamethrower for the fire attack this week because he does have Wide Guard, potentially. And finally, very hard, of course, to pick the last Pokemon, but I'm going with Sylveon. Sylveon, I mean, a lot of the reason I drafted Sylveon in the first place is to enable Psyblade game plans with Iron Leaves, because it can, of course, hit a Terra Dark Pokemon with Fairy Hyper Voice or Fairy Terra Blast if I'm worried about Wide Guard. This is another Throat Spray set. I ran enough bulk to hit whatever defensive benchmarks I was calculating against. Again, I think largely Regieleki stuff, and then just poured the rest into special attack. This time I actually do see one use for the speed EVs, unlike on Thunderous. Sylveon and Primarina have the same base speed, so 4 EVs means it's faster than uninvested Primarina if he happens to bring that. Terra Ground is why. I mean, it's obviously another Discharge immunity next to Thunderous, but I picked it before I decided to bring Discharge. But it means that Terra Blast... Right, it means that Terra Blast covers both of his Fairy Resists in Saraledge and Swalot. And I also have Shadow Ball to hit Saraledge hard without terastallizing Sylveon. That's the main thing that that's here for. With a Throat Spray boost, Hyper Voice gets off a ton of damage into some of his faster and frailer Pokemon like Regieleki, and Sylveon, of course, is a bulky enough Mon, even with this amount of special attack investment, it's a bulky enough Pokemon that it can serve as an emergency check to a lot of what he can potentially bring, which is why I decided that it was fairly important for me to bring this week. Also, you might remember, if you watched my draft recap, that Primarina was one of the Pokemon that I most wanted going into the draft for that very reason, to have a Fairy type to pair with Iron Leaves. And when Primarina was taken very early on, Sylveon was kind of my replacement Fairy type. So hey, Sylveon gets a chance to show that it was the right pick all along over Primarina. But that's the team. I've gone on a little bit long here, but hey, I went on a little bit long building too. My opponent's draft really warps the team builder here, and it's going to be very interesting to see what works and what doesn't, and what he brings that I actually have to deal with after calculating against a ton of hypothetical threats for however long I was at it. I'm interested in seeing what a Psyblade game plan can do. I'm interested in testing out Discquake. I'm interested in testing out Electric Seed Gligar. Probably won't get to use all of those in a single set, but yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll get to the battle as soon as possible. Let's see you then. We're here, finally. You don't know if you're watching, but it was hard to schedule this one. We had a big time zone difference. I was out of town for a bit. In fact, I just got home a few minutes ago. So right now it's 40 minutes to when the video normally goes up. We're getting this in just under the wire. Props to my opponent for working with me to find a solution on the scheduling. Anyways, brought Regieleki, Serperior, Rabombi. He did bring it, which makes a lot of sense to me. It gives my team some problems for sure. Saraledge, Primarina, and Gothorita. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense from him, and it's hard for me. I think it's potentially very hard for me to find the right mode into it. I think I like the simple Thunderous Iron Leaves lead. It's kind of the most obvious thing for me, but I mean, Iron Leaves is strong into a lot of his team. Not Saraledge and not Rabombi, but I can find switch-ins for those. I can bring Iron Treads to switch in on the Rabombi if I want. Iron Treads is good into Regieleki. It's good into Serperior, or not good into Serperior. It's good into Saraledge, at least before that terastallizes. I think I do bring it. And I honestly kind of want Magmar, I think. Maybe that's not enough offense. How do we feel about Magmar here? I feel like it's Magmar or Sylveon game 1. I'll bring Magmar. Alright. Magmar gives me some matchup tools for sure. I can switch it in right here. I can switch to Iron Treads and click Discharge. I can switch to Iron Treads and click Electric Terrain. I think I'm going to do that one. Wait. I can switch to Iron Treads and click Discharge, but I think I might rather switch to Magmar than Iron Treads. The Superior is not going to go for a Grass attack into my Iron Leaves, I don't think. What's the Terra type on Iron Treads? Grass? It feels like a slightly risky play, but I think I will go Electric Terrain and switch to Iron Treads. Let's see what this gets me. Here's Protect Superior. U-turn out with Ribombee. That's a good play. But I can click Volt Switch, but then I can't really click Discharge with that. This is what I was worried about with Discharge, huh? This is why I had Thunderbolt on here for a long time. Well, what can I say? We're experimenting. Live and learn. Of course, I don't have Protect on Iron Treads. I can just Terra Grass here. Then I'm not immune to my own Discharge anymore. I think it's, well, I think it's not the end of the world if I hit my own Magmar with Discharge, but I don't think I want to do that in this position with the Primarina potentially getting off an electric attack, or a water attack. So I think what I'm going to do is Thunder Wave the Superior and Volt Switch the Primarina and try to get out 2 Iron Leaves. It's Stellar Superior, makes sense, and they don't let me get the Volt Switch as they glare my Iron Treads. Well, now I can get a Discharge pretty safely, and I don't hate the Terra Grass Iron Treads, unless that makes me too weak to Ribombee. Yeah, that's a valid concern. I'm gonna Discharge. Hope that Iron Treads survive whatever the Primarina does here, and try to get an Iron Head into Superior. If they actually switch out, Discharge does not paralyze the Ribombee, but the Iron Head does big damage. They have a Citrus Berry and Stellar Terra Blast to start setting up boosts. The Ribombee is not an obvious threat into anything that I have, so I think I can just Discharge Iron Head again. How much did it do? 49? Well, better than 0. Oh, we just barely take a +1 Leaf Storm there. And actually, with the Discharge crit on Superior, we do get the KO. So that sure is lucky. Don't know that I can call it anything else. I don't know if it's on screen right now, but my opponent wrote "what" in the chat. I'll Discharge again. And I guess I'll sack Iron Treads. I'll go for Earthquake in case they let me. But I don't think they will. They U-turn out, so we'll see their last Pokemon here. It's Ceruledge. I would like to get this Earthquake off, but no, I didn't think I would. But now... oh, another crit. Man. Primarina goes before... what I can do is I can Terra Fire Iron Leaves, Thunder Wave Primarina, Psyblade Primarina. Should be safe against whatever the Ceruledge does. Wait. If Throat Spray Primarina, it's definitely slower than my Iron Leaves. I'll taunt the Saraledge instead, in case he goes for a late game setup play. Oh no, it's Tailwind, 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 Tailwind. We do the first thing I said. There's Tailwind. Bombi has Tailwind. We get the Thunder Wave, we get the Psyblade, we get the Primarina. I forgot to Terra. How did I forget to Terra? What happened? Oh man, I'm a mess. Just walked right in the door and started playing, and look what happened. But here, I don't know what he's targeting with the Phantom Force. If he targets but Thunderous, then it's KO'd. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to discharge and switch to Magmar. I'm not worried about attacking my own Magmar here. So he goes for a U-turn. We knock out the Rabombi. He doesn't KO the Magmar. And I'm just going to Helping Hand discharge. And then I can get Iron Leaves in to finish it. Still don't KO my own Magmar. I'll get the Electric Terrain back up. I might as well. And I might as well try to throw off a Clear Smog. But of course, doesn't hit the Paralyzed Saraledge. He KOs my Thundurus. And now, I don't even have to reveal the Terrifier at this point. So it's kind of accidentally beneficial to me that I missed using it earlier. I'll just follow me in Psyblade. But yeah, I was really bailed out by some crits there, so we'll see what happens game 2. So he brought a good balanced mode there with Rabombi, Superior, Primarina, and Saraledge, and he kind of got haxed. So I don't know what adjustments, if any, he'll want to make. Maybe the Gothorita, so I can't switch around his threats. I'm not feeling highly motivated to bring a different Pokemon. There's a case for Gligar. There's genuinely a case for Gligar. In fact, I actually do think I want to bring Gligar. I think I'm going to lead Thundurus, Gligar, Iron Leaves, Iron Treads, and go all in on setting up Electric Terrain and having my Pokemon pop off. If he leads something like Superior Rabombi again, then Gligar's Acrobatics is legitimately one of the best things, one of the biggest threats I have into those Pokemon. Especially since I know now that the Superior doesn't have a Terra type that changes its defensive properties. As you lead Saraledge this time with Rabombi, I will Electric Terrain, and I'm going to go for a Swords Dance. I think the Rabombi probably U-turns out. Maybe it sets Tailwind. But either way... Oh, Sticky Web. Okay. Tailwind and Sticky Web. As it's Phantom Force on the Saraledge. So here, I can pretty safely discharge, and I'll throw off an Acrobatics at the Rabombi. I don't know if it stays in. It does, to use Tailwind. As the Phantom Force does 40% to my Thundurus. The discharge finishes Rabombi, doesn't paralyze Saraledge, and now the Primarina is in with Tailwind. Not ideal, but I think I feel fine here about trying a Thunder Wave into the Primarina. Maybe it protects this turn. I think it might, so I'm going to Terra Water and try to high horsepower the Saraledge. The Primarina doesn't protect. Get some good Bitter Blade recovery there, and I cannot set Electric Terrain back up, but I can one-shot the Saraledge. And that resisted Hyper Voice still does a lot into my not-so-specially bulky guy. But Iron Leaves is pretty hard for him to deal with from here, as he has the Superior. Of course, I didn't bring Leaf Blade, so I will... I will Psyblade Superior, and I'm thinking about whether to protect or just try to Acrobatics the Superior. I don't think Gligar takes a hit here. I'm gonna protect. He might try to finish Gligar off. He does. Don't know what the Primarina was going to do, but Psyblade one-shots the Serperior, and we should be pretty good here. I don't think Gligar will take the next Hyper Voice, but we'll try to get an Acrobatics, because we actually are faster, and that's it. I definitely haxed him some in Game 1. I think Game 2 was pretty clean. He's asking if I have replays. Yeah. Sorry for crits. Game 1. But yeah, we win week 2. We're now 2-0 on the season. Feeling pretty good as we get to the very tail end of week 2 right now. And that's it. See you next time.